The grief that surfaced this week from Ted Scott was not the kind that fades when the headlines move on. It was personal, rooted in place, memory, and a lifetime of connection to a community now shaken again by violence. Known widely as the steady presence beside Scottie Scheffler, Scott has long been associated with success on the PGA Tour, major championships, tournament victories, and the quiet consistency that defines elite-level golf. But beyond the fairways and scorecards lies a different story, one tied deeply to Louisiana, where his sense of identity was formed and where the latest tragedy has hit close to home. Scott's emotional response followed a shooting at the Mall of Louisiana in Baton Rouge. What began as a confrontation between two groups escalated into gunfire in a public food court, leaving one person dead and several others injured. Among those hurt were students from a school in Lafayette, the same region where Scott grew up. For him, this was not distant news, it was a painful reminder that the violence affecting communities across America had once again reached into his own. On social media, Scott did not attempt to craft a polished statement. His words were simple, direct, and heavy with emotion, his heart was burdened, and his thoughts were with those affected. It was a reflection of someone who wasn't speaking as a public figure, but as a member of a community in mourning. The tone echoed a deeper fatigue, one that comes from witnessing repeated tragedies without clear answers or solutions. To understand why this moment resonated so strongly with Scott, it's important to look beyond his role in professional golf. He was raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, a place where family ties, faith, and local involvement often define one's life path. Even after achieving success on tour, he never fully detached from those roots. When he's not traveling for tournaments, Scott dedicates time to youth mentorship through organizations like Hope for Opelousas. The initiative focuses on supporting at-risk children through education, guidance, and community building, work that reflects Scott's belief in long-term change at the grassroots level. This commitment to his community has made moments like the Baton Rouge shooting even more personal. The victims are not abstract figures, they are part of a broader network of families, schools, and neighborhoods that Scott has spent years supporting. His life off the course is intertwined with these communities, making their pain his own. The recent incident also comes on the heels of another devastating event in Louisiana, intensifying the sense of unease. Just days earlier, a separate act of violence in Shreveport claimed multiple lives, including children. The proximity of these tragedies, both in time and geography, has created a ripple effect of grief across the state. For individuals like Scott, who remain deeply connected to the region, the emotional toll is compounded. This is not the first time Scott has faced such personal hardship linked to violence. In 2025, his family endured a life-altering incident when his nephew was shot during a casual basketball game. The attack left the young man paralyzed, forever changing the trajectory of his life. Scott immediately stepped away from his professional commitments, traveling home to be with his family during the crisis. That moment revealed a different side of the man often seen walking quietly beside one of golf's biggest stars. It showed a family member grappling with trauma, searching for meaning in a situation that defied explanation. In the aftermath of that incident, Scott publicly questioned how peace could be found in such circumstances. It was not a rhetorical statement but a genuine expression of confusion and pain. Months later, as another tragedy unfolds in his home state, that question remains unanswered. The repetition of violence has only deepened the uncertainty, leaving behind a lingering sense of helplessness. Meanwhile, the world of professional golf continues to move forward. The Zurich Classic of New Orleans, held annually in Louisiana, began as scheduled even as news of the shooting spread. Played at TPC Louisiana, the tournament represents one of the few team-based events on the tour and holds special significance for players and fans in the region. That it proceeded without interruption highlights a familiar tension in sports, the need to carry on, even when external events weigh heavily on those involved. For Scott, The juxtaposition is particularly striking. On one hand, he is part of a professional environment defined by routine, competition, and performance. On the other, he is processing grief tied to a place that shaped his life. The contrast underscores a broader reality faced by many athletes and support staff. The separation between public roles and private emotions is often thinner than it appears. Golf, as a sport, has a history of responding to tragedy in ways that reflect its unique culture. When Payne Stewart died in a plane crash in 1999, players paid tribute during the Tour Championship by hitting his signature club, a 2-iron, in his honor. It was a quiet, symbolic gesture that spoke volumes without the need for words. Years later, after the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting, the Shriners Hospitals for Children Open became a focal point for collective mourning, with players and fans uniting in support of the victims. More recently, when wildfires devastated Lahaina in Hawaii, the golf community once again stepped forward. Events like the Century at Kapalua became platforms for fundraising and awareness, with players such as Colin Morikawa and Xander Schauffele contributing to relief efforts. These moments reveal a side of golf that extends beyond competition, a willingness to acknowledge suffering and to respond with empathy and action. Scott's reaction to the Baton Rouge shooting fits within this broader tradition. Yet it also stands apart in its rawness. He did not organize a campaign or lead a public initiative. Instead, he shared a personal reflection, one that resonated precisely because of its simplicity. In doing so, he reminded people that those involved in professional sports are not insulated from the realities faced by everyday communities. At 52, Scott has spent decades in golf, building a reputation as one of the most respected caddies on tour. His partnership with Scheffler has been marked by trust, communication, and a shared focus on excellence. Together, they have achieved milestones that many players and caddies spend entire careers chasing. But moments like this reveal another dimension of his life, one defined not by trophies or rankings, but by relationships and responsibilities that exist far from the spotlight. The work he does with young people in Louisiana is particularly telling. Programs like Hope for Opelousas aim to address the root causes of issues that often lead to cycles of violence and instability. By providing mentorship and educational support, they seek to create alternatives for children who might otherwise face limited opportunities. For Scott, this is not a side project, it is an extension of his values. It reflects a belief that lasting change comes not from isolated actions, but from sustained engagement with communities. The Baton Rouge incident, then, is more than a single event, it is part of a larger pattern that challenges those very efforts. Each act of violence risks undoing the progress made by individuals and organizations working to build safer environments. For someone like Scott, who has invested time and energy into these initiatives, the frustration is understandable. There is also a broader question about how public figures respond to such moments. In an era where statements are often scrutinized and amplified, there can be pressure to say the right thing. Scott's response avoided that complexity. It was not crafted for impact or visibility, it was simply honest. That authenticity is what makes it resonate. At the same time, his words highlight the limitations of expression in the face of repeated tragedy. Saying that one's heart is heavy captures the emotional weight, but it does not offer solutions. And perhaps that is part of the point. Not every response needs to provide answers. Sometimes, acknowledging the pain is itself a meaningful act. As the tournament in New Orleans continues and the golf world moves forward, the events in Baton Rouge will remain in the background, felt by those with ties to the area, even if not always visible. For Scott, the experience adds another layer to a life already shaped by both professional success and personal hardship. In the end, his reaction serves as a reminder that sports do not exist in isolation. The people who make up these worlds, players, caddies, coaches, and fans, are connected to communities that face real challenges. When tragedy strikes, those connections come to the forefront, revealing the human side of a game often defined by numbers and results. Ted Scott did not set out to make a statement that would resonate widely. He simply shared what he was feeling in a moment of grief. Yet in doing so, he contributed to a larger conversation, one about community, loss, and the ongoing search for answers in the face of repeated violence.